Last week we heard the first part of Jesus' great Sermon on the Plain, which is different from the Sermon on the Mount that we find in the Gospel of St. Matthew. The sermon, you may remember, began with 4 blessings followed by 4 woes, in which Jesus announces the great reversal that the kingdom of God is bringing about. And so the first will be last, the last will be first, the poor and the destitute will be exalted, and the powerful and the haughty will be brought down. It's a frightening message. It's a message for our time. And then in the second part of the sermon that we just heard, Jesus turns to 2 other topics: love and judgment. The love that Jesus talks about, however, sets us back on our heels, or at least it sets me back, because Jesus does not say, love one another. He does not say, love your neighbor. He says, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray for those who mistreat you. Well, I can understand love of neighbor, but it's very difficult for me to understand love of enemy. After all, how can I have any emotional feeling of love for those people that hate me? How can I have a feeling of love for those who want to destroy me? But Jesus is not talking about emotions and feelings of love. Jesus is talking about doing good for others, doing to others as we would like them to do to us. Jesus is talking about being merciful in the same way that God is merciful to us sinners. David exhibits this kind of love when he has an opportunity to take revenge on Saul, who has been trying to kill him. But rather than take revenge, David is merciful to his enemy. David loves his enemy. Love of enemy, then, is not an emotion. It's not a feeling. I cannot love my enemy in the same way I emotionally love my friends. But there is something I can do even to those who wish to harm me. I can pray for them. I can ask God to bless them. I can do good for them to the extent I can. And I can be merciful just as God is merciful to me. This is what Jesus is talking about when he calls us to go beyond the ordinary boundaries of love. Anyone can love and do good to those who love them. That's natural. But the real test of our love is to do good to those who would do evil to us. Jesus then moves on to the fault of judging other people. I think it's the great fault of our day, judging others. We all do it, don't we? I know I stand guilty. We are constantly judging others by our standards with little or no insight as to why people act the way they do. Why can't they be more like us, perfect in every way? And so Jesus warns us that we will receive the same judgment with which we judge other people. But he also promises us that if we do not judge others, then we will not be judged. If we do not condemn others, then we will not be condemned. So the measure of our mercy and judgment will be the measure of the mercy and judgment that comes back to us. What a marvelous sermon this is, this sermon that Jesus gives. It's short, it's to the point. If only I could preach such a short sermon. So let me stop here. But when I do, let me also give you some homework for the week ahead. And I want you to do your homework. During the coming week, read this sermon on the plain. You will find it in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 6. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 6. It's only going to take you about 3 minutes to read through the sermon. So you need to read it slowly. You need to read it several times. Become intimate and familiar with the words of this sermon. If you can, memorize parts of it. And then in your prayer, ask yourself this question: who is the enemy in my life that the Lord is calling me to do good for, to be merciful to stop judging? And then ask in your prayer for the grace to live in this new and extraordinary way, this way of loving your enemy, this way of not judging other people.